Late one evening, a longtime caretaker of Jane Russell's hillside property remembered seeing a single light glowing in an upstairs window. The rest of the estate lay silent, its corners and corridors asleep under the California moon. Curiosity piqued. He climbed the winding staircase to a small library he rarely entered. There, through a half-open door, he found the famed Hollywood Bombshell seated on a plush rug, leafing through a worn scrapbook. Her gaze fell upon old photographs, some from the sets of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, others from intimate family gatherings. She was lost in reverie, a quiet smile on her lips. No cameras, no directors, no swirling chatter of the press. In that moment, you realized there was an essence to Jane Russell's life, far beyond the screen star persona. She was a woman who needed a real, unassailable home, a place to lay down memories safe from the glitter and chaos of Hollywood. And up on this hilltop, in a home now valued at a cool $4.4 million, she had found precisely that refuge. Jane Russell was born in 1921 in Bemidji, Minnesota, but her family soon moved to California. From an early age, she felt the tug of two worlds, the safe, steady rhythms of home life and the electric possibilities of a Hollywood career. She once admitted that she was a homebody forced to dance on the biggest stage in the world, a sentiment that shaped her entire approach to property. When she eventually became a film sensation discovered by Howard Hughes and thrust into the limelight with sultry roles that stunned 1940s audiences, many assumed she reveled in the extravagance of stardom. But the truth was more nuanced. While her fame soared, Jane found crowds and paparazzi unnerving. She yearned for a place that offered seclusion, comfort, and a genuine sense of belonging. Homes for her were not trophies, they were sanctuaries. She began her ascent in the early 1940s with The Outlaw. Critics and censors alike were scandalized by her on-screen presence, sparking a wave of publicity that made Jane Russell a household name. And with that name came offers, endorsement deals, magazine covers, and the chance to buy her own piece of California heaven. In 1945, after flirting with a series of small rentals around Hollywood, she finally invested in a modest ranch-style house. It wasn't the $4.4 million estate we now celebrate, but it marked the first time she put her heart into a property. Perched on the outskirts of Los Angeles, the ranch's single-story design featured wide windows that let in the perpetual sunshine. She furnished it with sturdy wooden pieces, big, comfortable chairs, and hand-picked antiques reminiscent of her Midwestern roots. She'd often invite a few close friends for home-cooked dinners, preferring simple pot roasts to high-end cuisine. To their surprise, she'd slip off her heels at the door and pad around barefoot, utterly at peace in that unpretentious dwelling. But Hollywood's relentless tempo soon caught up with her. The demands of back-to-back filming schedules, promotional tours, and intense public scrutiny made it clear that she needed something with more privacy. By the early 1950s, she had the financial footing to look beyond a simple ranch home. She began scouring hillside plots and higher-end enclaves, determined to find a place where neighbors wouldn't be starstruck or invasive. Fate guided her to a secluded perch with panoramic views of Los Angeles. At the time, it was no more than a rough patch of land and a partially constructed structure. Yet the moment she stepped onto the property, she felt a hush, as if the rest of the city evaporated below. She saw potential, her blank canvas, to craft a dream sanctuary. The project took shape quickly. Jane hired an architect who specialized in blending traditional Spanish Revival styles with the clean lines of mid-century modern. This marriage of aesthetics felt distinctly like her, a Hollywood bombshell with roots in a simpler, more grounded world. White stucco walls and terracotta roofs promised an old-world romance, while expansive glass panels and open floor concepts gave the home a contemporary edge. Local rumor has it she was influenced by the breezy, sun-kissed design of certain Beverly Hills mansions, but insisted on customizing it to let in as much morning light as possible. Mornings were her sacred time, her chance to sit at the kitchen table, sip coffee, and read a devotional or reflect on the day ahead. When construction finished, the estate emerged as a multi-level marvel. One approached it via a gently sloping driveway lined with olive trees. A wrought iron gate offered a taste of grandeur, but not ostentation. Past the gates, the house itself sat high enough to glimpse city lights at night, but far enough to feel insulated from them. Inside, the foyer welcomed guests with a warm, earthy tile underfoot, and just beyond lay a living room that soared with vaulted ceilings and exposed wood beams. A massive stone fireplace dominated one wall, while floor-to-ceiling windows lined the other, framing a vista of rolling hills and the distant urban sprawl. Friends described the living room as having a kind of lodge atmosphere, cozy despite its size, an apt reflection of Jane's preference for intimate gatherings rather than big Hollywood blowouts. The true heart of the home, though, was the kitchen. Jane insisted on a design that allowed for group cooking with a spacious central island and plenty of counter space. She famously joked that more relationships are mended over a mixing bowl than in any therapy session, and believed wholeheartedly in the healing power of a good meal shared among friends and family. She personally chose cream-hued cabinetry, rustic tiled backsplashes, and copper pots displayed overhead. Even after her star faded from its brightest era, she still loved to step into that kitchen at dawn, the first rays of the sun streaming through a large arched window, reflecting in the copper and bouncing gently off the terracotta floors. Down a hallway branching off the living area, a series of bedrooms offered quiet retreats for visiting relatives and close friends. She had a deep sense of family devotion, especially after her experiences with adoption. Jane eventually became a vocal advocate for orphans and believed that every child needed a loving environment. Perhaps it was fitting that these rooms were painted in soft pastels and adorned with sweet floral details, a testament to her maternal instincts and her desire to nurture anyone who crossed her threshold. Sometimes, when the demands of Hollywood weighed too heavily, she'd slip away into one of these guest rooms for a nap, telling her staff, "If the phone rings, tell them Miss Russell is lost in the orchard." Stepping outside from the living room, you'd find a terraced backyard that led to a small grove of citrus and avocado trees. Legend says Jane planted the first sapling herself, wearing casual jeans and a wide-brimmed hat. She cared for them almost religiously, enlisting a professional gardener to teach her the finer points of pruning. On cooler California nights, she'd wander down these terraces with a lantern, listening to the rustle of leaves, inhaling the sweet scent of blossoms, and savoring a sense of peace that no film premiere could replicate. But the estate's real showstopper was a sweeping veranda that curved along the property's outer edge. Complete with plush seating and gentle, warm lighting, this veranda became her favorite evening hangout. From there, one could see the entire city's twinkle, a sea of lights that made it easy to dream. Many summer nights, close friends gathered for quiet barbecues, drinks, or simply conversation. Yet if anyone in that circle dared to call it a party, Jane would shake her head. "Parties are noisy affairs with paparazzi. We're just folks here," she'd say. Indeed, these gatherings lacked the frenetic energy of Tinseltown soirees, focusing instead on laughter, heartfelt stories, and the occasional sing-along around a portable radio. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, Jane's career soared. She starred alongside Marilyn Monroe in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, embraced comedic roles, and graced countless magazine covers. Though roles tapered off in later years, her star status remained constant. Still, in her personal life, storms gathered. The tragedy of multiple miscarriages, the stress of navigating a changing Hollywood system, and the heartbreak of divorces wore her down. This home on the hill became all the more precious, a place where she could weather personal storms in private. A few staff members recall her pacing the veranda late at night, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders, staring at the city lights. Once, they overheard her quietly praying or reciting scripture under her breath, seeking solace in faith. She was a woman of devout Christian beliefs, something that shaped not just her moral compass, but also her sense of interior design. Crosses or subtle religious symbols often appeared in surprising corners, above a doorway, or discreetly placed on a mantel. When she wasn't filming or traveling, Jane spent many hours in the library near the main foyer. This cozy wood-paneled room boasted a floor-to-ceiling bookcase, a Persian rug that had reportedly belonged to a silent film star, and a small desk where she kept personal letters, diaries, and philanthropic project plans. Once she embarked on her mission to support adoption organizations, a wave of new visitors entered her home. Donors, charity directors, and occasionally young mothers in dire situations. Jane made sure the library's ambience remained inviting, offering fresh flowers and a pot of tea. Despite her imposing star presence, she had an uncanny ability to put people at ease, often saying, "A home that doesn't welcome strangers is no home at all." As the property matured, so did its owner. Jane moved through the next decades with grace, though not without personal battles. She occasionally lamented Hollywood's superficialities, which clashed with her more grounded self. The house, however, continued to reflect her evolving spirit. In the late 1970s, she renovated one of the upstairs bedrooms into a small art studio, though she wasn't a painter by trade. She wanted a space to experiment, dabbling in watercolors, sometimes painting quick sketches of the orchard or capturing the swirl of her own emotions on canvas. Friends who visited said the walls of that studio became a collage of incomplete efforts, some half-finished, others oddly poignant in their brushstrokes. The act of painting seemed to provide a release, one more dimension of the woman hidden behind the Bombshell exterior. While the main estate was her fortress, Jane also owned a smaller, simpler property in Santa Barbara, a coastal cottage she occasionally fled to when city life felt overwhelming. In contrast to the sweeping, multi-room splendor of the Hilltop mansion, the Santa Barbara hideaway was a humble place where she might tuck herself away for a weekend, do her grocery shopping at local markets incognito, and watch sunsets on the beach. Yet, no matter how much she cherished that seaside respite, she always returned to her hillside estate with relief, greeting the staff in her orchard as if reuniting with beloved confidants. If the cottage by the sea was her sanctuary for reflection, the hilltop was undoubtedly her kingdom. Stories swirl of occasional high-profile guests. Clark Gable, Robert Mitchum, and even Howard Hughes may have passed through. Yet Jane's parties remained subdued, as she insisted on meaningful conversation over fanfare. An old rumor claimed she once hosted a dinner for the cast of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but Marilyn Monroe arrived late and left early, unsettled by the quiet, homely atmosphere. "Is this it?" Monroe reportedly asked. Jane just laughed, replying, "Welcome to the real me, darling." Over time, the estate garnered its share of hush-hush intrigues. Some said there was a hidden stairwell leading to a small meditation alcove. Others spoke of a locked trunk in the attic, rumored to contain love letters from a famous co-star. The staff never confirmed or denied these rumors. An unspoken code of loyalty governed the place, ensuring Jane's private life remained her own. Every so often, a journalist might pry with direct questions about secret rooms or dusty diaries, but Jane kept that warm, enigmatic smile, effectively ending the line of inquiry. Later in life, she confronted health struggles and a changing Hollywood that had little room for her brand of classic glamour. Still, she would occasionally appear in public or in interviews, speaking of her Christian faith and her philanthropic passions. Even as she aged, the house never lost its sheen. She maintained it diligently, reinvesting in its upkeep. She replaced older tiles, refreshed paint, and occasionally upgraded the landscaping with new flowers or shrubs that drew hummingbirds by the dozens. It was said she found joy in watching these little birds flit around her garden, seeing in them a reflection of her own lively spirit. "They don't know how lovely they are," she once mused, perhaps drawing a parallel to her younger self who also hadn't fully grasped her own magnetism. In the twilight of her years, Jane spent more hours at home than anywhere else. She would often retreat to a veranda chaise lounge, a crocheted blanket over her lap, gazing down at a city that had once tried to consume her. She no longer feared that city below. She had faced it, conquered it, and returned to her safe space with a sense of triumph that radiated through the walls. Neighbors occasionally glimpsed her silhouette at dusk, head tilted, hands folded, as if in silent communion with a life richly lived. When she passed away in 2011, many wondered what would become of this beloved Hilltop property. Real estate agents appraised the estate's worth, pegging it around $4.4 million. Although some claimed the intangible aspects, her personal touches, her storied legacy, would elevate its value well beyond mere market numbers. Those in the know realized it wasn't just a mansion, it was a tapestry woven from the threads of a remarkable woman's life. From the orchard she lovingly planted to the library where she penned countless letters, every corner echoed her presence, her resilience, and her desire to unite Hollywood glamour with the warmth of a true home. Even after her death, visitors to the estate, whether potential buyers or caretakers, report feeling an odd hush the moment they step inside. The air almost vibrates with memory, the faint melody of a radio playing big band tunes, the rustle of a dress from a long-ago dinner, the echo of her laughter near the fireplace. Many believe the orchard remains the heart of it all, living proof of her commitment to nurturing life. Allegedly, some of the original trees still flourish, heavy with citrus in the right season. Perhaps the greatest testament to Jane Russell's character lies in how thoroughly she fused herself into the estate's design. The grand foyer might dazzle at first glance, but hidden in a corner sits a small bench where she'd tug off her shoes or offer a kind word to the housekeeping staff. The library's stately shelves hold old scripts and theological commentaries side by side, mirroring her dual devotion to art and faith. Even her bedroom, which boasted a 4-poster bed and sweeping city views, had a modest bedside table lined with daily devotionals and well-thumbed poetry anthologies. If anything, her private spaces spoke louder than all the shimmering chandeliers combined. What does this estate reveal about the woman who lived within its walls? Jane Russell was complicated, a bombshell carved out by Hollywood, a spiritual soul who craved sincerity, an adoptive mother who championed children in need. The house held these conflicting facets with gentle acceptance. One moment she could entertain a star-studded crowd in the living room. Hours later she might sneak away to that hidden nook by the orchard for a moment of prayer or reflection. Like the orchard's fruit, the property ripened over decades, shaped by her joys, sorrows, and evolving convictions. It was, in every sense, a living canvas. The few who have had the privilege to tour it since her passing often describe an overwhelming feeling of warmth. While so many Hollywood homes present as lavish monuments to ego, Jane's estate whispers about the power of authenticity. It's easy to imagine her ghost, if such things exist, still wandering those hallways, humming a tune from her youth. Maybe she's in the kitchen, swirling sugar into her coffee, or stepping onto the veranda at dusk, still enthralled by the city lights that once called her name. Perhaps she's flipping through an old scrapbook in that tucked-away library, reflecting on her improbable journey from a small-town girl to a global icon. In the end, the home stands as more than just a prime piece of real estate worth $4.4 million. It's a monument to a woman who, despite the bright glare of fame, never lost sight of the quieter comforts, the hush of a hillside at sunrise, the familiar seat in front of a cozy fireplace, the orchard she nurtured with her own hands. For Jane, the real currency wasn't fame. It was the ability to feel at peace within one's own four walls. Hollywood's lens might have labeled her as many things: siren, legend, pioneer. But here, in her hilltop sanctuary, she was simply Jane, a woman who treasured family dinners and hummingbird visits as much as any red carpet moment. If there is a final scene that ties together the story of Jane Russell and this hidden paradise, it might be this: a single lamp still illuminated in the upstairs library long after the guests have gone and the laughter has died away. It stands as a beacon, reminding us of the life that pulsed here, a life steeped in devotion, creativity, and the pursuit of a true home in a world that so often shreds privacy. In that gentle glow, you can sense Jane Russell's spirit whispering that even the brightest stars need a quiet sky above their heads. And up on that hill, beneath the endless California night, she found exactly that.